Another week, another episode. Hey, everyone. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for listening to the Retro Gamers. Larry here.
And Anthony here.
What is up?
Oh, just multiple levels of exhaustion.
That seems to be the theme in this stage of our lives.
Yeah, but we're not even 40 yet. We should be this tired.
Not yet, but
I have a reason for being tired today.
What's that supposed to? Okay.
No, I have an actual legitimate excuse.
Fair
for
enough.
Being exhausted today because I have just completed the Disney Infinity Gauntlet Challenge. Thank you very much.
Yes, you have. I think you came in first. I'm not sure.
No. I did not come in first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard the wire.
I did not come in first. We're not even going to go there. But, however, it still stands to reason that I did cross the finish line twice.
Ah, very good.
And now have a lovely Infinity Gauntlet medal in my collection.
And there's no chance we'll hear of a story about you possibly not making it to the end, getting carted out on stretcher or anything like that. There will be no story like that.
No, I swear the guy I bribed just dropped me off right before the finish line, so it's all good. So for anybody who doesn't know what this is, Disney does an Infinity. They do an Avengers superhero run weekend. And the Infinity Gauntlet Challenge is a 10K on one day, and then the next day you do a half marathon, and you get a medal. You get a superhero medal for each of those, and if you complete both, you get an Infinity Gauntlet medal.
That's awesome.
Yes, and it was awesome, and I had a great time. So happy I survived it, and looking forward to the next one.
Good. Is the next one next year, or they do it kind of?
They do it once a year,
okay.
But then there are a ton of other Disney themed runs. So I'm just going to start looking into other ones to do, and I'm heavily debating. I may actually do the LA Marathon next year.
Whoa!
So,
there you go. You heard it here first.
Go big or go home.
Might as well. And I will be watching then the LA Marathon like I did the New York City Marathon last week from home.
Yes. Well, and I think now they have these things in the runners' bibs where there's a chip, so you can actually follow their progress on the track. Yep.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
So you can. So I can give you I can give you my barcode to look up online, and then you can find out exactly where I pass out.
Right where you stop.
Right. When you see my running go from 6 miles an hour to 0, followed by 45 miles an hour in the ambulance.
Awesome. Well, with that, hopefully you had fun, and good luck next time.
Thanks.
And we'll see what's happening. Maybe the Retro Gamers will sponsor you. We'll say you do
it.
You can record while running.
Yes. We'll do a live podcast as I run the marathon.
I'll be driving next to you
in a golf cart.
Yes.
Or a Segway.
We will make this happen. Oh,
we must make this happen.
God. Puzzles. Let's get into it. Puzzle games. Puzzle. I'm just thinking about me on a scooter during the marathon, beeping to get people out of the way.
I think that would be awesome. That would be something worthy of the People of Walmart website.
And then I completely forget the part that I'm right next to you and I want to win the whole thing, so I just step the pedal to the metal and then just gun it to the beginning of the thing.
I guarantee you there would be people that can outrun your scooter.
Probably. So with that being said, puzzles, my God, puzzle games have been a staple of video games for the dawn of time.
I don't know if it's been that long, but yes.
Well, yeah, we were talking last week, we were talking about, with the Atari Flashback, 3D tic-tac-toe, that's a puzzle game. So they've always had their feel, but, they definitely kicked into high gear when the NES came out in the Genesis.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. Didn't we also discuss the disaster that was 3D tic-tac-toe?
We did. It wasn't a good game, but it was definitely a puzzle game.
Yeah. It was puzzling that it even got made.
Yeah, honestly, right? It's not until we kind of started doing some research here, I guess you don't really realize the different genre of puzzle games that there are. Like, for some reason, when you just think of puzzle game, just kind of it's all one category, but there are definitely different types of puzzle games.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, you know, when you think of the ultimate puzzle game, naturally, I think most people, especially if we're talking retro, most people will gravitate towards Tetris.
That's the one.
Tetris is probably the definitive puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
And if any, and I don't know if it invented the genre. My guess is it did, because I can't think of any other game that predates it. The falling block puzzle game. We've had numerous amounts of games that have copied that, but Tetris, to me, will always be the definitive one. Not only for the challenge, but also the music, because I can never forget the music as you were playing that game.
Oh, it's iconic. I don't remember the name of the song, but it's definitely iconic. So isn't it like Beethoven or something?
No, I think it's German. I want to say
German from a Russian game. I'm shocked.
Or I'm sorry, Russian.
Oh.
I meant Russian. I'm trying to remember the name of it.
Here we go. Hold on. So now I played the Game Boy version, and the Game Boy version.
Korobeninki. I don't know how to say it.
There you go.
Korobeninki.
Where are some of our Russian friends here? Now covered by the U.S. dance band Dr. Spin, not to be confused with the Spin Doctors.
No, you do not want to get those two confused.
Well, there was a couple different versions of the song in Game Boy, that I remember. Okay, the one from Nintendo, the one I think that's most familiar, I think is from the Nutcracker, the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Isn't that the one? No, that's... is that the one from Nutcracker? Is that Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy?
No, this is not Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy, but this is the original Tetris theme.
No, that is definitely it, yes. I guess now I have to send money to Japan. But,
oops, we owe somebody money. Well, there's also a story, the story behind that game that, like...
oh, it's iconic.
Well, I mean, yeah, the Tetris theme itself is iconic, but the
story
tragic...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the tragic story of the creator of that game not actually making any money off of it.
Not until, I think, the mid to late 90s, probably, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, something like that. There was a whole big controversy about that.
Alexei Pachknov, the man who created this game. And the game came out in 1984. I don't remember if it came out even before that, because I don't know if that's when Russia decided to release it.
In the U.S., I don't think it came out until 1989.
No, correct, because it came out with it was the pack-in game with the Game Boy. And it was, I mean, I played that game. Everyone did. And I think it single-handedly helped sell the Game Boy. So...
Oh, there's no question about it.
Yeah.
I mean, my family, we would, all of us sit around the television and take turns playing this game. Like, everybody in the house played this game.
Game was, and there's no need to describe what it is, because everyone knows what it's all about. Now, here's my question, because you were always able to play with the next block showing or without the next block showing.
That's right.
I always played without.
And I always played with, because it helped me strategize on where to put the piece that was currently falling. And that's how I used to always, get my high scores. Because I think at one point I had hit level, I want to say 18 or 19.
There you go.
Which is insane when you think about how fast that thing
goes. Forget about
it. Once you hit level 9, that sucker just kept falling.
I think it probably stopped. I couldn't get any faster, I don't think.
I don't know. It always felt like it got faster.
Yeah, right?
I just remember it. Yeah, and I had to see what was coming next. I had to.
And I have to say real quick, besides Tetris for Game Boy being my favorite, my number one Tetris, my number two favorite Tetris was Tetris DS on the Nintendo DS. Fantastic version of the game with a lot of good new versions. It wasn't the 3DS, just a regular DS, with a lot of good touchscreen gameplay to it. But yeah, Tetris has been released on everything known to man. Yep. So that is the end-all, be-all puzzle game. But it's not the only puzzle game. And there's a lot of good other ones, especially with that falling block idea. And let's go to the next probably most memorable one, Dr. Mario.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Mario was super fun. I really enjoyed playing that one.
Dr. Mario, again, Nintendo's twist on the Tetris-type game. There were viruses, 3 different colors. You drop the pills, which had different colors to them, match them up, 3 or more color, and they disappear. So,
right, but the added challenge to that one is that you had to line them up on top of that colored virus to eliminate the virus from the board.
Yep,
and that's how you clear. And once you cleared all the viruses, you cleared the board.
Yeah, that game I remember. That was actually a game my dad played endlessly on the Nintendo. I'd wake up sometimes, he'd be in my room playing the game.
That's not creepy.
And then there's some older ones, some other ones. You remember the arcade game Clax?
Yeah, I remember the game Clax. I never played the game Clax.
Clax was fun. Clax was almost like, I don't remember how many colors were in the game, but it was, again, you had to stack 3 or more of the same color, vertically, horizontally, or diagonally in this one, and they kind of came down on a conveyor belt. And what happens is you have this, we'll call it an arm, for lack of a better term, and you can stack them up the colors, so you don't have to release them yet onto the board, but you stack them up. I think you can only stack 5 at a time, and then you start to release them to start creating the lines. That was probably my third. If I can list 3 of them, that would be like my third favorite falling block puzzle.
What is your second favorite? Dr. Mario? Is that okay?
Dr. Mario, yeah.
Okay.
Later on, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say later on, I kind of fell in love with Yoshi.
Oh,
the puzzle game Yoshi.
I remember playing Columns on Sega Genesis.
Columns I liked. I didn't play much of it, but I did like it the few times I played it.
Yeah, because that one was almost like, it was the same thing. It was the falling concept, but it was with different colored geometric shapes that kind of looked like jewels.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you were also allowed to, I think if you put 3 of the same color in a row, they would disappear. But in this version, you can do vertical, horizontal, and diagonal.
Yes, no doubt. That was kind of that was Genesis. Genesis's the Genesis version, like that was their quote unquote Tetris, meaning like that was their puzzle game of all puzzle games.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a very entertaining one.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was released again so many times on different versions, Game Gear, all the different collaboration or compilation games, I should say. I remember the Sega 6-in-1 cart. I think Columns was on that. I think if I remember correctly.
Definitely remember that one. Yeah, those are I guess for me those are at least the falling puzzle games that I remember the most.
No, definitely.
I don't think if there are any other.
Then you had like all the Tetris clones, Weltris, Wordtris, Hattris. Well, I think Hattris wasn't a falling block puzzle, but a lot of the just Tetris versions. And then Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo. I remember that one being a big deal game, and that was also big with co-op play, not co-op play, but versus mode. Because in that one, and it kind of played the same as Puyo Puyo 2, or Puyo Puyo, which was released here in the U.S. as well, where when you clear a line, that forced like a line onto your opponent's board, which would throw him off. And again, it was another line up the colors.
Right, and there are other games like that as well, and we'll discuss them later. But obviously the selling point for Super Puzzle Fighter was that it was Street Fighter. Basically. Yes,
that's what, and that's going to lead to when we talk a little bit later on a game that we've talked about many times. We'll get into a little bit later. And then you have some. Now, I mean, there's a bunch of different categories. So one of the other, I guess, how do I explain it? Obstacle course navigation. A game like Bomberman. Choo Choo Rocket, which came out later on. I think that was on Dreamcast, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, Choo Choo Rocket.
Marble Madness. Marble Madness was a
Marble
classic.
Madness was a constant pain in my side. I loved playing that game, and I always wanted to finish that game, and I think I eventually did because there weren't that many levels to that game. It was just very, very challenging.
All right. So one of the level I always got furthest to was the one where it was like in space and it kind of kept disappearing. Do you remember that level? Was that the last level? Or was there one after that?
I think that was the last level.
Oh, was it? Oh, then I did get to the last level. Okay, never beat it.
Yeah, I think so.
What is some? I mean, there's so many different types and versions of puzzle games. I mean, what are some besides Tetris and stuff? What are some of the puzzle games that you used to play, or even today?
I mean, a couple of the ones that pop in my head. One is called Bust a Move.
Yes,
which is also known as Puzzle Bobble. And in that one, you're shooting the colored bubbles from the bottom of the screen to the top, and you have all these different colors up at the top, and the object is to clear all the ones at the top.
Yeah.
And that game, and if you cleared a certain one at the top, like based on like the levels, if there were other bubbles attached to it and they would fall down, so you got bonus points for that. Or if you were playing versus mode, if you did that and knocked extra balls down, they would get added to your opponent's screen, whether you were playing the computer or another person.
Yep.
And I just remember playing that nonstop, especially Bust a Move 2 on PlayStation 1.
Yes.
And I remember the single-player mode was really challenging on that game.
The Bust a Move series is probably one of the best series out there. I owned almost every version from PS1 on, even on Wii. There was a special version on the Wii. That game really did. And then again, well, let's not forget what started that version of puzzle games. Do we all remember in college Snood?
Snood, oh my gosh!
You remember that one? Now that was like the first game where you fired from the bottom of the screen up to the top of the screen. And Snood, I mean, I forgot. People just stumbled upon it. It was almost like the first web-based game. And I remember in college, people went nuts. I mean, it was just a fun game to play, especially if you were taking a computer class, because you ended up playing it in class.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because like they were weird images too.
They were like goblins. Yeah, they were like goblins.
Yeah, they were weird. They were all geometric shapes, but they had faces.
Yes,
which were kind of fun. And if you've never played Snood, you can look it up on YouTube just to see what the gameplay is like. It was just really, again, it plays like Bust a Move and stuff like that, but it was just kind of interesting and kooky. And it was
really it was the first one, and it was also kind of like just the first where it was almost like the first Flash game. I think it ran on Flash.
Did it run on Flash?
Maybe, I don't know. Don't hold me to that one. I'm not sure on that one.
Oh no, I don't hold you to anything.
Good, I'm glad. So and then there was some other game. One of my favorite later on. And I've talked about it before, but it was so fun. Pokemon Puzzle League on N64.
Oh yeah, and we've talked about that one.
It's
numerous
classic,
times.
And again, it's Tetris 2 essentially with a Pokemon layout, which was the selling point of it. And I'll be honest with you, in college, walking down the hallway, you hear like Pikachu, Squirtle, because every time you'd clear a line in versus mode, the Pokemon would scream, and that's what you heard going down the hallway. And I mean, I'm not even joking. There was like tournaments going on of this game. It was wild.
Yeah, and this game was interesting too because it was it was a nice twist because the the items were the blocks weren't falling, you weren't shooting them up, you were just switching their places so that you can get them lined up.
Exactly, all vertical. And you switch them horizontally to remove them vertically.
Right, which is kind of like what you do with like Candy Crush and Bejeweled and games like that now on your phone. Pokemon Puzzle League. I'm not going to say it was the originator of that concept, but it's I like you. It's one of the most memorable ones for it. It was one of the only Pokemon games that I didn't feel guilty about playing because I was 20.
Sometimes when the girls came around, they may have muted the TV, but that's neither here nor there.
The girls never came around.
No, not. Actually, I got a good story I have to tell for another time about that. But be that as it may, Pokemon Puzzle League, Tetris Attack, Planet Puzzle League. These are all games, all the exact same version of the same game. Another game, kind of. Well, it's more. I guess more on. I don't remember it on home consoles like Zuma. Yeah, these are more
like
some of the first mobile games. We don't talk a lot about some of the first mobile games. Luxor.
Well, because mobile games are, I don't know. I mean, they're an interesting. I almost feel like mobile games are kind of like evergreen in a way, you know. Okay. It's like because like people will just pick up and play Zuma today. People will pick up and play Bejeweled today, even though those games have been out for like 10 plus years.
Oh, totally.
So so it's interesting. I don't know if we've never really tried categorizing mobile games.
Do you like what are some of the what were some of like the really challenging puzzle games that used to drive you batty?
Well, I've talked about Seventh Guest before, and that's definitely a puzzle game. Mm-hmm. And there was one specific puzzle in there that used to drive me crazy. It was you had a broken chessboard. They were only like it was like set up in a certain way where there were only like 12 spaces on the chessboard, but it was in a weird design. And you had 2 black knights and 2 white knights standing on each other's squares. So the black knights were on the white squares and the white knights were on the black squares, and you had to figure out a way to switch all 4 of those knights on this limited board using the way a knight moves in chess.
Oh, wow.
Which is 2 forward and 1 to the side. And I remember I eventually got lucky, but I remember it took me an hour and a half, I think, just sitting down playing around with this thing to figure it out. I eventually gave in at one point, and this was after I beat the game. I had beaten the game, but this was like years later. Mm-hmm. I picked up a strategy guide for it because I'm like, I've already beaten the game and I've forgotten some of this stuff. And I bought the strategy guide specifically for that puzzle. And the fastest way, I think, to solve that puzzle was in 64 moves or something like that. Holy cow. Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And that was the quickest way to do it. So just absolute lunacy. But Seventh Guest is on my list for challenge, no question. And then another one that this one wasn't necessarily challenging as it was super fun for the original PlayStation, Devil Dice. And my mom and I used to play Devil Dice like crazy. Like, that was one game we would just sit down and play nonstop. And the concept of Devil Dice is you're on a board, and I believe it was like 16 squares, 4 rows of 4, and then you had dice pop up from the ground. And what you needed to do is you were a devil standing on top of the dice, and you needed to flip the dice to get a certain number of them in order so that they would disappear. So in other words, if you flipped it to a 2, you needed 2 2s next to each other. If you flipped it to 6s, you needed 6 6s connected to each other for those dice to disappear. And if you did the higher ones, you got more points for it. So, and then as the levels got up, more dice would come up faster. So you had to do that before the board completely filled up with dice and blocked you from moving dice around. And I absolutely loved that game. And it had a great single-player mode with – I don't even remember how many levels were on it, but it was fantastic. It was great. Love that game. I still own it. I still have that.
Oh, do you? I don't think I've ever played it. I've seen it, but I don't think I've ever actually played it.
I highly recommend it for anybody who loves puzzle games out there. Pick up a copy of Devil Dice on PS1. You won't be disappointed.
Definitely check that out. You ever play the Lemmings series? Because I remember Lemmings was one of the first games, almost one of the first games I played when 3.5-inch floppies came out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had Lemmings on my original PC back in 96. And I believe I also had it for, I want to say Super Nintendo or Genesis.
I feel like I may have had it for PlayStation.
Maybe
Lemmings,
PlayStation.
And Lemmings was complicated at times because you'd have to, these lemmings would just literally walk in a straight line, and you had to make sure you had to get them to a safe point because they'll just walk right off screen, right off a cliff, and you had to set up, ramps and traps and stuff along, well, not traps, but ramps and everything just to get them to their safe spot. It played also like Krusty's Funhouse, which I know we've talked about before. Another great classic puzzle game. Not in, I guess, a traditional puzzle like Tetris or something, but just a puzzle mechanics.
Well, yeah, and to be honest, I mean, Krusty's Funhouse, I think, was a ripoff of Lemmings.
So of course,
by all means. They just completely took that concept.
I always found puzzle games to be better. And I know you didn't play a lot of the portable, like Game Boy or Game Gear or anything like that, but I always found the puzzle games fit more naturally on a handheld. Probably because of the just pick up and play mentality of a puzzle game.
Well, I can understand that. I mean, it does make sense. I mean, to have handheld versions of it.
Some of them,
but it just never worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, some of the better series, like on just a little recent DS, the Professor Layton series, which were more like they were, you had to solve these puzzles and these riddles. WarioWare Inc., that was on Game Boy Advance, where they were like literally like 3 or 4 second mini games, one after another after another. The Brain Age games on the Nintendo DS, which was supposed to be training your brain. I don't know if it really worked or not, but again, math puzzles and word puzzles and stuff along those lines. And in my opinion, one of the better games that came out on Game Boy, and even to this day on a 3DS, they have versions, even a Pokemon version, Picross. Mario's Picross.
No idea what that is.
Basically what it is, nowadays it's more 3D. I don't like the 3D versions of it, but it's either 8x8, 12x12, whatever it is, grid. There's numbers along the top and along the side, and those numbers tell you where they meet and where to clear the block to form a picture.
Oh, wow.
And all it is just, like, it'll say 1, like, on the horizontal version, on the x-axis, right? X? Yeah. Would say, like, 1. That means on those 15 blocks, only one of them is going to be filled in. And it's just kind of process of elimination. You kind of hope the board starts with one that says 15, so you just clear the whole row and kind of work from there.
Gotcha.
One of the better games today, and I downloaded that. One of the first games I downloaded on the Virtual Console on the 3DS. Fantastic game.
I will take your word for it.
Definitely check it out. Solomon's Key. I mean, we talked about that once before. Kind of a sleeper hit.
Yeah, Solomon's Key to me was a super fun game. I remember because it was an NES game, and back in the day, it's like you really didn't know how good these games were because it's not like you can go online and get reviews and stuff like that. So Solomon's Key was a game that I never officially owned, but I used to rent it from the video store all the time. I'm sure I spent more money renting it than what the game actually cost because for some reason I always wanted to finish that game.
Yeah, I never got far in that game. Lord knows that. It's on the Mini Famicom.
Oh, good. So I'll own it again soon.
You sure will. Yeah, and they came out with a sequel to that called Fire and Ice.
I had no idea.
I feel like I remember the game, but I didn't realize it was a sequel or a prequel.
I do not remember that one at all. I just remember Solomon's Key and loving Solomon's Key. And I have the music in my head right now.
What?
Like that's how much I played that game.
Definitely a classic. Do you remember a game on PlayStation called Intelligence Quota? Am I pronouncing that? Am I saying that right? IQ, no. It was called. It was very, 3D like. Basically, you were on a board of cubes and just kind of run around and you had to eliminate the cubes, and there were certain cubes you had to do with certain stuff. I'm not going to do it justice. It's a little more complicated as far as how to play the game. But Intelligent Cube, that's what it was called, Intelligent Cube. Classic game on the PlayStation. I think it may be available on the PlayStation Network. I'm not 100% sure on that.
No, it sounds like one I'd want to check out.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Your cubes are cleared by marking a spot on the stage, waiting for the cube to roll on top of it, and then deactivating the marked spot. It's confusing but fun.
Okay, and I was just about to bring up a game. What is it? Oh, I mean, puzzle games. I mean, for me, are like you can almost argue that a lot of games are puzzle games. I mean, because when you think about it, games are that the big part of the challenge for a lot of games are solving puzzles.
Oh, totally.
But one of the oldest PC puzzle games, Minesweeper.
Oh God, it came with everything. It
came with everything, and it's just a quick, fun game that you can play over and over and over again. And just, I remember I can't say how many times I cursed when I hit a bomb on those things.
What was your opening strategy? There was like 2 ways to start that game.
My opening strategy was to always go for a corner.
Okay, yours wasn't the random click? Hoping to get a giant spot opened?
No, I would always start in a corner and hope to get it
Okay.
Get a clearance.
Yeah, I was a random.
Yeah, I mean, because the first move was always going to be random, no matter what you did.
But I'm talking about like you kind of clicked around the board to open up, because you've opened up a gap. It opened up like a whole ton of them. So that's how I used to start them.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I remember just always, for some odd reason, I always felt like starting with a corner made more sense, but it really didn't. It was always random.
Tomato.
Exactly.
And you mentioned it. There are a lot of games you don't think of that are puzzles, like the Oddworld series, the Myst series, even the Portal games are puzzle games. You mentioned it, seventh. I was going to say Seventh Heaven.
Seventh Guest.
Seventh Guest.
Seventh Guest series.
Seventh Heaven could be a puzzle if you were locked in with the father, but Seventh Guest was a fun. Hey-o!
That's not pretty.
All right.
But I mean, if you even think about games like Resident Evil had a lot of puzzles in there that you needed to figure out.
It certainly was. They were annoying puzzles, some of them too.
Yeah, but you wouldn't qualify that as necessarily
I would
as a
say
puzzle game.
You're right. That's more of a survival horror. Yeah. You ever played Mr. Driller?
No, I have not.
That was a fun game. I remember that. I bought that one on PlayStation. Basically, Super Mario Brothers 2, the second level in the sand when you had to dig down the sand.
Oh yes,
that was pretty much Mr. Driller. And if you had different blocks of colors, either small blocks you jump down or larger blocks to jump down, and depending on the route you go, you either get down there quick or slow. That's been released multiple times as well. But the original PlayStation version, very fun, very addicting.
I was gonna say, what was the goal of the game?
Just get to the bottom. No, it was actually just there was like different. There was a survival mode, to get down as far as you can. There was just to get down to a certain part, and then that was the finish line, if you will. But usually it was just endurance. A lot of these puzzle games are endurance.
Yeah, true. I understand that. And what was it? I just had a game that popped in my head. Oh, there was, I don't know. I kind of consider this a puzzle game. Clue Land for NES.
Yes, I do. Yep.
My sister and I used to play that all the time. And Clue Land, every level was a different puzzle, and the object was you had a character that was constantly running around the board, and you had to reveal the coins that would draw a picture, and you had to do that before the bad guys killed you, or you fell into one of those little warp holes.
It's almost like classic concentration.
A little bit. Well, there was no matching involved with that.
Course.
And obviously game shows are natural puzzle games like Wheel of Fortune.
I don't know if I'd call it. Yeah, I saw that. Looking at a list beforehand, just kind of jogged the memory. And I saw Wheel of Fortune on there. I'm like, that's not really a puzzle game. I wouldn't count that.
Well, I mean, it is. You have to solve the puzzle.
I mean, it is, but it's a game show game. You know what I mean?
It's called Solve the Puzzle. You have to solve it.
It's called Wheel of Fortune.
It's called Wheel of Fortune, but the whole idea is to solve the puzzle. They call them puzzles.
Do you remember a game or a series called The Incredible Machine on the computer?
No.
You don't remember that? It was basically just a bunch of Rube Goldberg like devices, and you had to either put it together and just get the ball down, but it was just basically a Rube Goldberg game. Yeah, if you don't know, a Rube Goldberg machine, how can I explain it? You get a ball from A, you get something from A to B, or something to happen in the most complicated way, just a series of chain reactions. If you ever saw Pee-wee's Big Adventure, when he made his breakfast, that was a giant Rube Goldberg machine.
That is the most famous Rube Goldberg machine, I think.
I don't know if he had one in Big Top Pee-wee. I feel like he may have.
I do not remember, and I will choose not to continue. Yeah.
You're a Big Adventure person, not a Big Top Pee-wee?
You are correct.
Oh boy. Any other? I mean, there's so many different games. Just looking at this list here, I'm looking at it. Buster Brothers. I remember playing that series on the PlayStation. Even came with a light gun on that one. Nope, I am thinking of a different game. Never mind. Buster Brothers was just a bunch of balloons, and you do what the game says. You bust the balloons with like a harpoon. It was kind of weird. It started on TurboGrafx.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of other ones I used to play.
Here's a fun one from Windows 95 and Windows 3.1, Deadly Rooms of Death.
Ooh, I want to play that.
Came out in 1996.
What system?
Windows 95 and Windows 3.1.
Those 3.1. Now we're talking. All right, I want that game now.
Where can you find that?
I'll play that now.
Yeah, right.
Drod. Deadly Rooms Death. Wow.
Yeah. What else?
Okay.
Lumines. Okay. Lumines? I don't know how you pronounce that. This was a game that was on the PlayStation. It actually started on the PSP, if we all remember what the PSP was. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those just really kind of match up colors. And, well, not colors. You match up, colors and boxes. But this was one of those part of like that rhythm puzzle game, kind of like, do you remember Frequency on PS2?
Oh, yeah, I had that game.
And what was the other one? Amplitude,
yeah.
I think it was Amplitude. It had these two games. You know what? Forget about Lumines. It was fun, but not as good as these other two. Frequency and Amplitude were pretty much the precursor to Rock Band, to Guitar Hero, stuff like that.
Yeah, and they actually made a Frequency, that version out of Rock Band that you were able to download.
Same company,
Rock Band Blitz.
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. Yep. I think that was on... Was that on PSP?
I don't know. I had it on my 360.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, that's right. Yes, I do remember that. And I remember, now these games came out, late 90s, probably early 2000s. So it was very heavy techno music. And I just remember even the soundtracks were pretty fly. The music was fantastic in these games.
Oh, yeah. I remember all games back then were super fun. Music wise, I want to say. My brain is melting. Because there was another game that just popped in my head, Load Runner for NES.
Oh, yes. Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, well, it's it's one of those games where it's like, is it a puzzle game? Is it not a puzzle game? Because, it was a side scroller, but the thing was, it was different levels, and you had to collect the gold on the levels before the guards got to you, and then you had to get to the top of the screen. But the cool thing about Load Runner was, I believe it was one of the first games, if not the first game, that had a level editor on it.
Did it? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. Yep. You were able to create your own level. So outside of the 150 levels that are in the game, you can make your own and play them.
Huh. That's pretty wild. And that was even on.
Well, that was on Atari.
Oh, Atari.
It was on. Well, was it Atari? No, it was. I'm sorry. It was whatchamacallit. Oh no, it was on Atari, but it was also like on the Apple II, the Commodore 64.
Oh, it was on a little bit of everything. It was on Nintendo.
Yeah, it's just.
I remember it on Nintendo.
Yeah, it was also on Nintendo, but we're talking about like 83, 84.
Oh yeah, of course. That's pretty cool. Do you remember Zoop?
I never played Zoop, but I knew of it.
I had it on. It was like one of the last Super Nintendo games I think that I had bought. And this game was kind of you were in this box in the middle of the screen, and you fired out to the edge of the screen. Again, it's one of those just match colors. You match shape, and when you hit a shape, you turn into it, and you just kind of process elimination. Zoop was, I remember that was a game that I used to play a lot of, and used to drive me nuts in the higher levels, because just coming at you towards the middle of the screen and panicking, trying to get all these colors and shapes and everything eliminated. Zoop was a fun one. That game ruled, in my opinion.
I'll take your word for it, but I do remember it. It was also, I remember it in the store because it was also on PlayStation.
Yep.
And it was in one of those large PlayStation boxes. Remember the larger ones?
Oh, yes. Just like when they used to sell CDs in those.
Oh, my God. I remember how obnoxious those were, too.
The box was like this.
No. I don't know, but you know what? I do remember playing Zoop, now that I think about it.
Okay. Yeah, it was a fun game. That was a good puzzle game.
I think I may have rented it once or twice. Back when Blockbuster was a thing.
Yeah, oh my God, Blockbuster. A friend of mine used to work there.
Well, I used to work in a video store, remember?
You did. And you did get some good stuff, too.
I know. I used to order all kinds of like imported games. 'Cause I hate it.
You sure did.
Yeah. So.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, and you know what? We can go on and on with all this. I mean, there's so many different versions of puzzle games and everything, but those are some of the popular ones. And any games at home, if you listen to them, post them on the Facebook page. Let us know what you like, what you enjoyed. And as we wrap this up, again, my personal favorite, I mean, Tetris, yes. Pokemon Puzzle League as well on N64.
Yeah, I gotta go with Tetris. Tetris. I mean, I think to me it's almost impossible to top Tetris. You're never gonna top it.
Yeah, right.
It was so groundbreaking and fun, and again, it just crossed all genres and players. You know, like I said, I remember my parents playing it constantly.
Yeah, right.
Used to fight for it.
And with that, follow us everywhere. Thank you for downloading the show. Follow us on Facebook. Catch you next time.
Wait,
what?
Wait.
Hold it. What?
Wait. Were there any puzzle games on Virtual Boy?
Yes, there was, and we'll talk about it next time.
Why do I doubt that? I think you're lying.
There were. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Sure there were.
Now I got to rewind the end theme song by 10 seconds.
Oh well. You know what? That's what happens when we do this.
See you later, everybody.